a video on carrot soup, which is dead easy and pretty cheap as well. Similar ratios to the pea soup that I made. So I'm actually making double the quantity because I want some carrot puree for something else. So there is more weight here than I'm actually going to tell you that it is, but I'm only going to make half the amount's going to go to soup, half the amount's going to go to something else. So it's going to be 500 grams of carrots, 350 grams of onions, 125 millilitres of milk, 3 stock cubes, and 500 millilitres of water. Carrots and onions, pretty straightforward. Just roughly chop the onions and do the same with the carrots. Carrots, we're going to leave the skin on, we're going to wash them, but all you really need to do to prep them is whip that little bit off the end, that goes on the compost, and whip that bit off the top there, leaving as much on as possible. So kind of take that off there, left with the carrots, chop them up that kind of size. The smaller you cut them, the quicker they're going to cook. But obviously knife skills are maybe a problem. If you wanted to cook them really quickly, I'd use a box grater and grate the carrot down, grate the onion down, and that would make it cook particularly quickly. Cooking it straight in the water, not going to bother sauteing it off because we're not going to put any oil in this. So just straight into the water and a simmer, and then we'll take it from there. So I'm going to peel the carrots and prep the onions. Those are not the carrots, those are the onions. I'm going to peel and prep the onions. I'm going to peel and prep the carrots, and then we'll come back when we are at that kind of stage of you don't need to see me boil them, tenderizing them in a pan of water. We'll come back when they're nice and tender, and I've taken away half the kind of liquid. The pea soup for 500 grams of peas makes about 1.3 litres worth of soup. Carrots are a little bit denser, so we might actually need a little bit more water just to thin it down a little bit more. So we'll get a little bit of a high yield. But I did a quick calculation for the amount of soup that we're making. It's going to cost about 72p, which is cheap. I reckon we'll probably end up getting about 1.5 litres, which is, we're talking about 5 portions, which kind of make it even cheaper. But if we go for 4 portions, it's about 18 pence a portion, which is really cheap. So if you're wanting a light lunch or a snack, this is going to be a really cheap soup. But anyway, so I'll do some work and then we'll come back. The carrots and the onions have come up to the boil, lid on. It's boiling a little bit too much, as you can see. Move that away so it doesn't make a mess of the camera. Has it made a mess of the camera? No, that's fine. That's gone away. So, as you can see, that's how I've cut up the carrots and the onions. It's boiling a little bit too much. Well, it can boil, that's fine, but I just want it on the back of the stove, so it's just going to tick over nicely. So, back of the stove, lower heat, turn the front gas off, and it'll just sit until everything is, can you see that? We've moved. So it'll sit on the back of the stove, gently simmering away until it's all nice and tender. Depending on the quality of your blender, depends on how far you need to cook it. So if your blender's not that good, you need to cook your vegetables more so they puree down a lot easier. If you've got one of these really fancy blenders, that will certainly puree veg that isn't just quite as soft. But I've got my blender's not that good, so I'm going to puree everything down. Also affects the flavour as well. So the more you cook vegetables, it changes the flavour. So why I don't particularly like the flavour of raw vegetables vegetables in soups. So I like my soups nice and well cooked and then pureed down. So that's it. It'll take, how long is it going to take? That's going to take, I don't know, half an hour on the back of the stove, but it's not doing anything. You can just sit there happily, and then we'll come back when we need to puree it. Right, the carrots and the onions are now nice and soft. You can tell they're nice and soft because we can just easily press them against the side of the pan, and they want to smash like that. So I made double the quantity because I'm going to use the puree for something else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to puree it so I know that everything's soap on my hands. I'm going to puree it so that everything's mixed. We know that everything's mixed together, and then I'm going to pour off half of it. So I'll pour it all into 2 jugs, and then I'll know that I've got half of it for something else that I'm faffing around with. So we're going to puree, which should puree quite easily. That's about as much as I want to puree it to split it in 2. Camera's getting a bit steamy, but it doesn't matter. So let's pour this off into a measuring jug and we'll see how much we've got. Can't see anything on the jug. That's right. I can see where 2 litres is. So that's 2 litres in there. So we know that we need. That's definitely 2 litres, and so that's a grand total of 1.5 litres. So no, 2.5 litres. So we want 1 litre 250 millilitres. Yes, that's right. So pour this into here. Take that up to that amount, which is half of the full amount, and then this into that, and that's what I'm going to make into the sauce. I haven't got the milk ready, so I better measure some milk out. I'll be back in a second. Right, I am back, and I am better prepared than I was before. So, 125 millilitres of milk, 3 stock cubes, and a little bit of water in case we need to let it down just a little bit more, because as I explained earlier, the carrots are just a little bit more dense than peas, so we might just need to let it down a little bit more. So 2 stock cubes in, because it's definitely going to need 2 stock cubes. There's no seasoning other than the stock cubes in this. So give a puree to give it a mix. Go, throw in the milk. What the milk's going to do, it'll add a little bit of creaminess to it, and also it'll let the soup down, which means we can make it like a more of a pureed soup, because it's a little bit lumpy at the moment. I don't particularly like lumpy soups, unless it's like a thick country vegetable which has got chunks of vegetables in, but this is going to be a puree soup, and I want it to be pureed. So milk in. Still a little bit thick, so we'll add, I reckon, 100 millilitres of water, and we'll just scrape the sides of the pan down. So we'll make sure we get all that in. Yeah, definitely going to need 100 millilitres. So that's 300 millilitres, so about that. A little bit more, and that'll be 100 millilitres. And then we'll taste, and we might add the other stock cube. It's a much better consistency, so we'll throw in, no, we'll taste first. So, teaspoon. Yeah, it's nice, but I think another stock cube will make it even nicer. So, for the stock cube, use the blender to mix the stock cube in. taste again. No, that's spot on. It's a nice consistency, so we'll get rid of that water. And then we'll pour the soup into the measuring jug and we'll see how much we've got for that recipe. I reckon, same again, probably more like 1.2, 1.3 litres, something like that. Oh no, even more. So we have made 1.5 litres of soup for the grand total of, working out. So we've made that for a grand total of 72p. So that is it's certainly 5 portions. So what we're looking at, 15 pence a portion. Yeah, 15 pence a portion. That's really cheap and absolutely delicious. And so if you work on the basis of 500 grams of vegetables, 350 grams of onions, 500 millilitres of water, 3 stock cubes, and 125 millilitres of milk. Whatever vegetables you want to use is fine. So carrots, peas, pumpkin. Well, certainly butternut squash, yes, but pumpkins no, because they're a lot more watery. But most hard vegetables like cauliflower or broccoli, that type of thing, that's a good ratio of soup, and it will make a good quality soup and make it really cheaply as well. So there we go, carrot soup, absolutely delicious as well. I'm going to give half of it to my mum, but there we go, carrot soup, cheap carrot soup.